me, it seems as if you want to use a non-portable or not easily transportable commodity for your baseline electricity. Natural gas and oil and gasoline, it seems to me, should be primarily used for transportation because it's they're portable fuels. And also for, like, we heat our houses generally with natural gas here because it's relatively clean. If you had 50,000 individual coal furnaces, it would make a mess, and it used to do that. So it seems to me, if you've got the cheapest source of energy that really isn't very transportable except on a train, that would be what you'd want to use for your base source, which is what we've historically done. What do you think about using the portable fuels, the premium fuels, for baseline production?
Well, I'm gonna get nervous when I hear about premium fuels because you think you're running out of one fuel versus another. Let the marketplace decide, and the marketplace has pretty much decided that, for example, natural gas does not compete well against oil-based fuels, except for some fleet vehicles where there's a certain range and you can refuel at night, and you can have the big canister on the truck. But in the electricity sector, it's going to be gas versus coal. Just let them continue to have that dogfight. It'll be good for us. It's a little after 1. I know some people need to leave, but other people like to stay and have more questions, so we can do it both ways.
One more question. Occupy Wall Street. I mean, there's a lot of anger and it's directed at Wall Street. If you could talk to all the Occupy Wall Street people, what would you tell them? Are they justified in some cases? Is it misdirected? And how might they focus this angst in the right direction?
That's a good question. I've seen some signs, abolish the Fed. It's like, oh, likes Ron Paul. I'd like to put on a wig, put on a little facial hair and penetrate it, and fire Obama and things like that. But there's a real educational opportunity here to explain to people why government and business together is an unholy alliance, and that capitalism isn't perfect, but capitalism is more democratic in the sense that we all decide to buy and not buy goods and services in the market. So I think a lot of left to center people are engaging in a rethink that Obama hadn't been the beginning of the new era like they thought, and certainly the idea of socialism is dead in virtually everywhere except for some Massachusetts universities. So we have to keep going and say, hey, this Milton Friedman guy, he's a cool dude, They asked Milton Friedman, are you for legalizing drugs? Yes. Milton, have you smoked marijuana? And he goes, no, but I'm making no promises about the future. And so that's kind of cool. He's a cool guy. So we need to be cool to the left, and we don't want to all preach to the choir. We have got to start changing people's minds. That's the challenge for all of us here.
Do you have this presentation on a website or something?
Well, we're going to ask the gentleman in the back. Trace?
We may be working on it. I have a question, because I've been to the Occupy Colorado Springs a few times.
Okay.
The one in Denver, because I'm trying to get them focused in. We're working on getting them focused towards the Fed. One of the big problems they have, and they're right on target, is corporate personhoods. Corporations shouldn't have the right of a living, breathing human being is one of their biggest goals. Will you address that? Do you believe in that or not? Or?
That corporations have rights and corporations shouldn't have rights?
Well, the Heller case, I think it wasn't the
Go
Heller
ahead.
case, the reacting to the Heller case that basically says corporations have the same free speech rights as an individual person to go out in the political realm.
Well, what's a corporation without people? It's employees and stockholders. So I think you have to get it back to living, breathing human beings, so that collectively you can have a voice based on the individuals, so long as you're not initiating force or committing fraud.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Nonprofits exist in large measure because of favorable government treatment from a tax standpoint. Do nonprofits have a proper role in your estimation?
Only if the nonprofit is has the initials IER. Actually, you know, one of the points that I make is that you know, our budget last year was $5 million. 5 years ago, it was a couple of $100,000. Why have we gotten so big? Because of energy politics. Our goal is to work ourselves out of a job. And there's a fellow on the other side, Joe Rahm. He's a mean guy. And I say, Joe, I'll come to Washington. Why don't you and I take a day off and we'll flip hamburgers? Let's do something productive. And I won't do my stuff, because what we do is try to cancel each other out, basically. And so the nonprofit sector, public policy sector, is way too big. And it's because of government intervention. And we're taking the $5 million we got, we're getting it from individuals, corporations, foundations. They could be spending that money on other things. So, yeah, the nonprofit sector is artificially helped in a sense because of the tax deduction, but is that bad or not in the sense that more people get to keep their own money and get to choose how they want to spend their own money rather than that money going to government?
One more question. Did you have a question, Drew?
Yeah, you had said that that there were some restrictions on coal based on sound science. And my question is, do you believe that there is a role for government to the extent that there have to be some precautions in regard to human safety, essentially, and health? And if so, we're in a period right now where there are an awful lot of people that don't believe in science. And so how do you rectify that situation?
You're talking about Joe Rahm? That happened before.
Well, you know, this gets to really a lecture in itself of the role of tort law. And, you know, a libertarian or free market, I guess we are always looking for a voluntary solution to social problems. We're looking for the voluntary solution first. So if there's a lake being, a government-owned river or a lake that's being polluted, I'm looking for a way to get the property rights to that water, that surface water, to private individuals where all of a sudden the incentives are different, or if someone is mucking it up, that person can have legal redress. But in matters of commons problems, such as air pollution, if they're criteria pollutants and, quote, sound science says that they're bad for you, there is a role for regulation. Do people believe in science today? A lot of it gets around the global warming issue, which is very politicized. But I think on things like the criteria pollutants and mercury, there is scientific debate, but there's a peer-reviewed literature that can give you guidance. And the key thing is to phase in your regulatory reform where technology can catch up, where you don't have mass layoffs and the rest of it. Okay.
One more.
We talked about anti-competitive business practices, rent seeking and monopolies seeking. What about anti-competitive labor practices and giving labor anti-monopoly or monopoly authority, which came from the Wagner Act?
Yeah, there is government intervention that gives labor unions non-market privileges. Now, was business behind that? No, that was more pure reformer driven. However, things like minimum wage, it was northern manufacturers that were behind minimum wage because they knew the labor costs were lower in the South. So you do have, you'll find more business lobbying and participation in these laws than you think. But labor unions, there's clearly non-market privileges where their members are benefited at the expense of non-members. And that's a transfer of wealth that adds to unemployment.
Would you change that?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of labor law under private property rights, the owner of that business and that land can decide if he or she does not want a labor union. And it could be the employers are getting a bad deal, so they quit and go to work for another company.
Well, I want to thank Dr. Robert Bradley for his presentation today. And again, there are books available out on the table as you leave. If you're not on the mailing list and want to be, please give me a card. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great weekend. And look forward to seeing you at the next Food for Thought Luncheon. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.